So there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For the one who has entered his rest has himself also rested from his works, as God did from his. Therefore, let us be diligent to enter that rest, so that no one will fall through, following the same example of disobedience. Hebrews chapter 4, 9 through 11. You may be surprised to learn that the fourth commandment is the longest and most detailed of all God's commandments. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall work, but on the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you or your sons or your daughters, your servants or your livestock, or the guests in your house. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11. We learned that God made the seventh weekday holy and blessed it because he rested on that day after making the world and all that is in it. The Sabbath, meaning rest or cease from work, is a weekly memorial of our Creator and his creation. It is a weekly reminder that God created everything, and everything other than God is simply a created thing. Why is that important? Why is keeping the Sabbath so important that it is God's most detailed commandment? God knew that if man failed to keep the weekly Sabbath, that he would eventually fall into deceit and begin breaking the second commandment, which forbids idolatry. Idolatry is simply the worship of a created thing, usually in the form of a person, an animal, or a heavenly body. If man had not forsaken the Sabbath, he would have had a weekly reminder that the invisible Creator is the only real God. Apostle Paul wrote that idol worship is nothing less than demon worship, and thus it is Satan worship. Satan's greatest desire is to be worshipped. Before he could deceive people into worshiping him through idolatry, he first had to get rid of the weekly reminder that there is but one God, and he is the Creator. In the second letter to the Corinthian church, the Apostle Paul expressed his fear that the saints would be deceived as Eve was deceived by the craftiness of the serpent. In the Garden of Eden, Satan convinced Eve that the forbidden tree was the same as all the other trees. When it comes to the Sabbath, Satan often presents the thought that all days are the same. But the truth is, God made one day of the week special, blessed it, and made it holy. Though the Sabbath was created at the end of creation week, it was soon forgotten. When God chose the children of Israel to be his people, he introduced the Sabbath to them. Interestingly, it is the only commandment which begins with, remember. Another important reason to remember and observe the Sabbath is because Jesus marks it as a special day in the last days leading up to the Great Tribulation and his second coming. In Matthew chapter 24, we read that his disciples asked him about when the time of great destruction would occur. He told them about wars, famine, and persecution, and then said, "When you see the abomination of desolation standing in the temple, flee to the mountains, and pray that your flight would not occur in the winter or on the Sabbath day." Obviously, like God in the beginning, Jesus too is separating the Sabbath as special from the other 6 days of the week. People who fail to remember and do not keep the Sabbath will certainly neglect to pray this prayer as Jesus instructed. God said, "Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy." One can only remember what he once already knew. God did not deliver this commandment by Moses or another prophet, but he spoke it to his people himself from Mount Sinai. As a Sabbath keeper for my entire adult life, I have learned the value of Sabbath observance. It has been a great blessing to me and to my family. And it saddens me that so many have forgotten the very day God commanded them to remember.